kosher this time.
This is the March 12th, 2012 interview with Ruth Hawley, aged almost 92. She's the granddaughter of William Allhands Linch, and today she's talking about her grandfather's children, her father's brothers and sisters. This interview is of the fourth child of William Allhands Linch, Charlie Linch. So tell us, what do you remember about Charlie Linch? What do you know about him?
Well, he was a very nice person to visit with, and everybody liked Charlie. And I was always very curious about him because he had one leg cut off, clear up as high as it could be cut, up by the hip area. And I remember talking to him how it happened. And he told me, he said when he was a little fella, he was, maybe 7 or 8 years old, he stuck his leg out into the wagon wheel, and that's what snapped the bones. And he had this leg amputated. They had to get a doctor as soon as they could, and the only thing they had was a local, what if you could call him a doctor, and they didn't get to the doctor to get him taken care of till in the night. And he was operated on by this incompetent doctor after dark by candlelight on the table of the kitchen. And they didn't think he would live, but he did. He fooled them. And the doctor cut the leg off, just cut it off like you'd cut a piece of meat in an animal. He didn't have skin to pull down and lap over and sew it up and so it would heal. He sealed it off by hot iron. He sealed it, made scabs to heal it too. Well, then he had this bad leg. He could never wear a crutch or a false leg until he was grown. He had a bad leg and suffered terrible when he was growing up with this open wound of a leg. And he was about a type of a person you'd expect out of that type of a family. He was smart, nice-looking fellow, and when he was he always used a crutch, and he could outrace any of them on it with his crutch. When he was a young man, they had foot races. Charlie won every one of them because he knew how to use that crutch the same as his leg. That was part of him, and he was a good worker. And when he was a young man, he made acquaintance with a girl that was one of the people that come into the area. I don't know where he met her. Her name was Amy, and she was very dark complected and had had no education. Other than, well, he didn't either for that matter, but they were all people in the same. But Amy had a very, very hard life because she had.
Did they get married?
Yeah, they married, and they had, I believe it was 4 girls. And the Ethel May was the youngest, and she was my age, and they lived on a farm neighboring our farm, so I was acquainted with the family. And Amy lived as a farmer's wife, and it was hard life. And but she had a very, very strange and bad temper, and she'd do weird things, and it was on the point of insanity, I guess.
Like what kind of weird things did she do?
Well, she'd slip over to the neighbors, and those days they had plows when they planters, and she cut the bags off after they were ready to. She slipped into this man's. And she cut the bags so that all the seed fell out of these bags. That was one trick she pulled.
Well, why did she do that?
Well, nobody knew.
Was it because she had it in for the people, or she didn't like them? Or?
They didn't know. She just had.
And they caught her at it?
Oh yeah, sure. She didn't care.
So, but what happened then? Didn't they get really mad at her?
Well, of course. But in those days, what do? No one had any money to do anything, and but she was good to her children. They were all girls, and if anybody needed a son, they did. But all of her kids were girls, and Ethel Bell was their youngest, and she was my age, and they lived. And that's how I knew it. Grew up when I was right young. I played with Ethel Bell. They were nice people, and I remember eating dinner down there, and it was a very Uncle Ray up there in Lincoln. He furnished some money to keep him afloat. Took food down to him different times, and he helped. He was always a good one to help the family. And Charlie farmed all the days of his life, and Amy was of this. She had this black nature, black temper, whatever it was. It was really a touch of insanity. Well, her whole life dated for the time Amy got religion, and somebody got to her that she was heading in the wrong direction, and they gave her some old-time religion, and she'd never heard any of the Bible stories or anything, and her life started from the moment Amy got religion, and she was just as fine a person as she was evil, if not far better, of course, because she knew she was heading. She didn't know anything about anything really, but she was good as far as a wife and mother and cook, and kept a decent house, and with the help of the Linch family, different ones gave him, and Uncle Charlie had a lot of faults too, because he had that leg cut off, and they lived a strange life. But anyway, Amy, after Charlie died, I guess she went into town of Wymore. See, they had the farm there next to my dad's farm, and she had these 4 girls, and part of them had married by this time, married decent people. They were a decent family. But Amy got religion, and she was a pillar of society after that.
So how old was she when she got religion?
Oh, I suppose, well, the kids were, I suppose she was married maybe 25 years, married at 15 or 16.
She was the second wife.
Yeah, no, it was his first. They only had the one wife.
Okay.
They only had.
Did you remember meeting her?
Oh yeah, sure. We had the neighboring farm.
Oh, that's right.
There, and we were always treated all right, and we went down
and you were
there.
Friends with the cousins.
Yeah, and but she was very. She never was brutal or mean like Cora was. There was never any of that, and she made do with what Charlie could provide, which wasn't very much. I remember Uncle Ray bringing in meat and things for the family so they wouldn't starve to death, and helping out.
So Charlie, because of his leg, but
Yeah.
you said that he could get around just fine.
He got around. It was the same as to him.
Person.
He was, his use of the leg was phenomenal. He could outrun anybody, and he farmed with that wooden leg.
Mm-hmm.
Cut curve, but that was his way it was. Nobody, he weren't on relief. Well, anyway, it turned out that Amy became as good a person as she was, if not, she couldn't do anything but get better, or else.
So she never went and did naughty things to the neighbors anymore.
No. Well, nobody knows the stuff she did, different things. It was strange. I mean, it was really bad. I've heard stories, but offhand, that's the only one I can remember. That she cut the seed bags off of this man's plow, so he couldn't use it. He couldn't plant his crops. She knew how to fix him so he wouldn't get any crop in. That sort of thing.
Uh-huh.
That was the level of her devilment, and just to see what she could do. Well, anyway, she got work as a housekeeper to a man that needed help. A man that had, he was not a rich man, but he had sufficient means, and they married. And she had a decent home and a decent life until she died. And then her children I remember there was Lorraine and Ethelbell, Mildred. They all married farmers and had a normal, decent life. And Ethelbell was the only one I knew because I was the same age and played together. Well, that's about all I can tell you about Uncle Charlie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll come back to Uncle Charlie later if you have anything
Yeah, I
else
don't
you
know
want to say.
whether he was buried in the family plot or not. I kind of think he was,
Where would that be?
where your grandpa's going.
In Alvo.
Uh huh.